Hello and welcome to another tutorial. This video is an excerpt from a lesson I taught recently where I demonstrated how to program dubstep drums using only MIDI, and I've added some overdubs in places to make my explanations clearer. Don't forget to like the video if you find it informative, subscribe for more content, and hit the bell notification to stay up to date with my latest uploads. Let's get into it. There's more of a philosophical question about whether or not you want to do drums as your first element. I often preach the idea of doing your central, i.e. your most important element first. So in theory, if you were going to make a more melodic track, you might actually want to make the leads or chords or something first. Or, if you were making a dubstep track where the focus was the bass, then in theory, you might want to do the bass first. Honestly, for the first few years of producing, I probably would say do the drums first, because I think it's just a bit easier for starting producers to kind of lay down a groove and then build something around it. Referencing, I always talk about referencing. I just say reference other tracks. I guess the idea with this as well is that we're sort of making like the drums for the drop, or certainly one of the busier sections of the track. You might notice that some of the MIDI clips I use in this project have this groove applied, but we're at 0%, so it's not affecting the MIDI. I like what you've gone for here because you kind of have this like duller hit, and then you have this brighter hit. So this is a nice contrast between these two. I'm just going to try some stuff out here with the other clap as well. Maybe I should actually just take these ones down a little bit so that they're a little bit quieter. That's the nice thing about having these kind of two separate bright and darker snares, is that you can kind of control almost like the EQ balance by changing their velocities. This is a good way of doing it as opposed to traditional EQs. It sounds a bit like bro steppy when you put the kick drum, 16th note in front of the snare. Yeah, we'll try that for now. You always have these like more regular elements in the drums. The snare hitting on every beat. This is fairly regular, mostly repeating pattern, but over, 4 bars. And then, so for the hats, might do a sort of trappy pattern. So I'm going to do like a drilly pattern. We'll kind of see how this goes. Sometimes it's nice to start with a more regular element with the hats as opposed to something that's more syncopated. Maybe we'll do do the trap rolls. So it's good to get the triplet grid out for this. It's quite nice. That one works quite well as like a roll because it's quite a sort of quiet, almost like subtle backgroundy hat. Don't know if I like it before though. Maybe have it more here. Here I'm switching back from the triplet grid to the regular grid. After all of this as well, I feel like I'm going to take I want there to be more space for me to have programming options. So I'm just going to take the delay off for now. Let's have a listen to the claps. Here I'm using the pencil tool and control to draw in hat rolls that increase in velocity. Sort of using like two different sort of like very regular patterns. So you've got this one, which is the quarter note pattern. Then you've got this one, which is more sort of eighth note inflected. So I'm not just putting it literally on every single eighth note, because that feels a bit too busy. Just trying to build a more syncopated rhythm out of straighter rhythms, if that makes sense. I haven't done anything with velocity yet. We'll get into that, but that'll help a lot with like the bounce and groove. Initially, I was tempted to do a more like drilly pattern. We'll see if it kind of works. I just like having like quite syncopated grooves in the hats, and it just tends to sound sort of drilly. You do definitely hear bits of that in grime and dubstep nowadays. In general, I've promoted this throughout the sort of life of my channel, but the idea of using a range of different hi-hats brings like so much variety to your drums versus using one hi-hat. And I think it's something that we can kind of have like a bass hi-hat and shaker, because even though this is sort of closed hi-hat, it's almost thinking of it as more of a shaker. Whereas that's kind of a more metallic sound. That's sort of more, it sounds more like a shaker to me, even though it says it's a hat. So, you know, you might have a hat and a shaker normally, and those would be your only percussion. But certainly a more modern way of doing it is having an array of different hats and shakers. You've got to make sure they all fit together. Not all of these hats were necessarily like fitting together, as in, I wasn't so sure about some of them like that one. But what you start with will obviously determine what fits and what doesn't fit, and obviously how you progress as well. So it's almost like the first couple of choices you make set things for you. So it's like, if I choose these two, I'm going to probably want more kind of metallic sounding hats. They'll tend to work quite well. Whereas maybe something like that, it's kind of metallic, but you know, you might want to go in and kind of actually works relatively well, but you can go and obviously and start to mess with the envelopes and stuff as well to get tighter samples. I kind of want like a half-timey version of this. Oh no, sorry, this. It's all about the triplet rolls with the sort of trap influence stuff. You can also, you know, I keep duplicating these and basically doing the ×2 thing. Here, I'm moving this triplet hat pattern to the end of the bar, a bit like a fill. Sometimes I randomly press them and I'm like, oh, actually, that kind of works. Maybe, you know, stuff like that. Kind of get to the stage now where if I actually add any more different hi-hat samples, they have to be really similar to the ones that I've already got. Otherwise, they tend to sound a bit off. I mean, if I put this up louder, you'll be able to hear it a lot more, but I was putting in, like I said, they're almost like little ghost notes, so you can't even like hear them fully. You can always feel them more than you can hear them. Just trying to make the second 2 bars the same as the first now. Here, I'm adding some clap fills. The most basic one is sort of the 16th notes. But that's the kind of like grimy one. You might get another situation where we're using here I'm iterating on the kick pattern. So you can obviously go in and do these one by one, which I think it's good to do at least some of this stuff by hand, changing velocities and whatnot. The general idea is the more offbeat ones, I'm going to maybe make a bit quieter. The ones that are on the beat, I'm going to make a bit louder. That's not always what you want to do. You might want to do the opposite, especially if you start layering stuff. But this is kind of my general idea. The grooves make the process of humanizing drums much easier in comparison to manually tweaking timings and velocities, but I'll usually tweak the velocities too. Just changing the velocities will start to add bounce. Now I'm adding more ghost hi-hats. That kind of feels more dubsteppy to me, particularly this section. Right, okay, so now we have this groove, which the things with the grooves is you can pull them out. The only thing with these grooves is they don't really have much velocity changes. So I would almost be inclined to go and look for one that has more velocity changes. I've used the two-step ones enough, so I'm almost avoiding using them. This is quite similar to this one though. You can kind of hear the rhythms are the same. The advantage of this one is there's a lot more velocity changes. They're very similar, but I'm going to try and find another kind of be able to see here, but it is like a triplety rhythm. When I change it to triplet grid, it's almost on the triplets. These ones you generally don't want to use on like 100% timing. You want to kind of, you can also use the global amount here. I'm just going to put it back to 100. Now I'm taking the previous groove off so we can look for a groove which impacts the velocities, which will do a better job of humanizing the beat. Use the hip hop boom bap one, kind of similar actually to the two-step one, but it's not quite as tripletty as the other ones. It's actually a bit more, you can see it's still around the triplet notes, but it's pushing and pulling a bit. So that one's sort of pulling because it's before the beat, and then that one's sort of pushing because it's after. So maybe let's try the hip hop boom bap one, and then we'll put it on like 20%. We'll put the thing about the two-step one I showed you as well is that the velocity changes are a bit crazy, whereas with the boom bap one, they're a bit more consistent, which is nice. I don't usually apply the grooves to the kick because I generally want my kick to be quite straight. I don't really want my kick to feel shuffly. There are exceptions to this, like two-step, for example. I will often apply the grooves to the kicks, but generally in dubstep, I want the kicks to be quite straight and then the percussion to kind of groove around it. You can sometimes get issues where sometimes things can almost sound a bit like double hits, but that's why you kind of have to sort of tune the timing and the velocities. So apply the groove. Yeah, that's like too much. That's weird. This is without. Grooves will elevate your drums and save you a lot of time in the process. Manual editing can help your drums feel more unique though. For the final part of the lesson, I repitched one of the hats to create some timbral variations. I only do this by a couple of semitones, but you could try more dramatic repitching. I also do some mild processing, and I'd recommend checking out my 140 breaks and speed garage drums videos for some more processing insights. I don't cover panning in this video at all either. Here I'm pulling the playhead to the start, and this will help tighten up the beat. Now I'm dragging out hat 2 to a new MIDI channel. And I'm dragging across the MIDI from the hat rack. And deleting all the notes I don't need. And then you have to go back and mute this one. So yeah, this can give you a bit more variety in your hi-hats. You won't necessarily hear this exact technique in dubstep that often, but it's a good way of just adding a bit of flair to your hi-hats. Next, we're adding drum bus. I usually process the kicks with the basses instead of the drums. I usually process the drums separately. The justification for that is that tonally a kick is more like a bass than it is a drum hit because of the low end essentially. But even just next, we can add a saturator. Do a little A/B before and after. Try and keep them similar levels so that you're not kind of fooling yourself. At the very least, I'd add an EQ at the end of the chain and remove below 100 or 120 hertz to clean up the subsonic frequencies, but I've not done this here. As much as I've shown in this video, perfecting your drums takes commitment and practice. Learning what rhythms work and what direction you want to take your beats in is something that takes time. Integrating a range of stylistic features into your drums, as I've done in this video, can help your drums feel more professional, but this can also be challenging for beginners. Building off more basic rhythms like quarter and eighth notes is a good starting point, and then adding rolls and fills to augment the simpler rhythms. You can apply grooves from the beginning if you find that more inspiring. I've gone maximalist with these drums. Perhaps you'd find this pattern in the second drop of the track, and I might find myself removing elements if I made this into a full track. And that's the video. Please leave any questions in the comments, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.